Hello everyone, welcome to a rules review. Today we are going to be looking all at the new Tyranids Crusher Stampede that's been doing the rounds. You know, it's in the White Dwarf, all the rules are out now, and it's very, very cool. It's got some downsides, it's got some positives, and I think the positives are really cool, and I'm going to run you through exactly why they are so good. If you haven't already, guys, please hit that subscribe button, notifications bell in the corner over there so you know each time we release one of these videos. And if you enjoy the content and you would like more exclusive content, including more battle reports, or you would like amazing discounts off our web store, or if you love what we just do here at Glasshammer Gaming and you would like to support the channel, then please head over to glasshammergaming.co.uk and join the elite. Right, let's get straight into it. So we've got the Crusher Stampede. And I am one really happy guy because I love Tyranids. Love Tyranids. Tyranids were my first ever army in Warhammer 40k. So my favourite faction is Orcs, and the army that I started the game with was Tyranids. So let's have a quick look at what the Tyranids can do. So first of all, it's basically like an army of renown. So you've got to follow the rules for this. So restrictions. Let's have a look at the restrictions first. So your army cannot include, notice guys, it says army, not detachment. Your army cannot include any swarm units and cannot contain any models with a wounds characteristic of 2 or less. So every model in your army must have at least 3 wounds. Every model. And like we say, not in the detachment, in the whole army, in the whole of your 2,000 point army, minimum amount of wounds allowed on a model is 3. So that means no gene stealers. So, you know, your combat inventory's gone. No gaunts to run around playing the objective secured, you know, bogging down objectives. No termagaunt blobs, nothing like that. You're not allowed to take any of those. And no swarm units. So you're not allowed any sky slashers that I've been seeing a lot of people take recently. Yeah, none of that allowed. Wow, okay. That's a pretty big downside, not being able to take any 1 wound or 2 wound models in your army. So that you might feel that a little bit, but maybe the benefits are going to outweigh that. We'll have to see. Also in the restrictions, for each unit from your army that does not have the monster keyword, your army must include at least 1 monster unit. Sorry guys. So that means for every monster in your army, you're allowed another unit that's a non-monster. But you can never have more non-monster units in your army than you have monsters. This is so cool, man. It's Nidzilla, baby. Big bugs all the way. Big bugs are back. So excited. So yeah, there you go. You're not allowed to include more non-monster units than monster units in your army. And I mean, come on. No one's moaning about that, are they? Who doesn't want to use big bugs? That's what it's all about. And then the final restriction is all units from your army must have the Tyranids keyword and be drawn from the same hive fleet. So you can't mix hive fleets in detachments. Your whole army has to be from 1 hive fleet. Right, and then we move on to the benefits. So those restrictions, you know, they don't seem that big. I mean, you got to have 1 monster for every non-monster. Well, that's fine, you know. Having monsters, like we say, that's the most fun thing, and that's what all the benefits are going to be in here, because it's the Crusher Stampede. All the monsters are going to be the ones with the benefits. So I'm not even sure that you'd want to have more non-monster units than you have monster units anyway. So that's not really that much of a restriction. The not having anybody with 1 wound or 2 wounds, that could hurt a little bit, but we're going to see just how much the benefits can outweigh that now. So let's have a look at the benefits. So first of all, the first benefit, all units from your army gain the Crusher Stampede keyword. Now that's, you know, that's so that you can do psychic powers on them, use warlord traits on them, and be able to use stratagems on them. That's why, you know, that's why the keyword's so big. So you get the Crusher Stampede keyword, and that's every unit from your army. Not just your monsters, all units in your army. Because, you know, let's not forget, guys, with the 3 wound rule, you're not just locked to monsters. some of the best units in the Tyranid book have 3 wounds or more. Let's not forget Tyranid warriors and the likes of Hive Guard, who I would argue are one of the best shooting units in the entire codex. So yeah, things like that are still making the cut, and they gain the Crusher Stampede keyword as well as all the monsters. Also, units from your army without the monster keyword gain the Shielded by the Hive Mind ability. Now, the Shielded by the Hive Mind ability, this is non-monsters. Yep, non-monster units. This unit can never gain a Hive Fleet adaptation, so you lose your Hive Fleet benefit. But models in this unit have a 5+ invulnerable save. That 5+ invulnerable save is better than pretty much any Hive Fleet adaptation anyway. So the thing is, you still have the Hive Fleet keyword. So if you were Kronos, your units would still be Kronos. And if you were Leviathan, units would still be Leviathan. They just wouldn't gain the adaptation, the Hive Fleet adaptation, your chapter trait, so to speak. So if you were Kronos, you wouldn't be re-rolling 1s to hit with ranged weapons if you stood still. You couldn't have that. If you were Leviathan, you would no longer get a 6-up feel no pain within 6 inches of a synapse creature, but you all get a 5-up invulnerable save. But like we said, you've still got the key word, so you can still use Chrono Stratagems and Leviathan Stratagems on the units that are, you know, from that Hive Fleet, but you just can't gain the adaptation. So you lose your adaptation for a 5-up invuln, but stratagems can still be used on you, Hive Fleet specific stratagems. So that's very good. A 5-up invuln, like I say, is so much more valuable than any of the Hive Fleet adaptations. So I think that's a really good benefit. Imagine your warriors running around with a 5-up invulnerable save. Your Hive Guard, when they get shot by manticores, they get a 6-up save or no save sometimes. And all of a sudden, here you go, they got a 5-up invulnerable, you know? They're 33% more survivable than they were a minute ago. So I really like that benefit. That's a very good benefit. The next benefit, monster units from your army gain the Hulking Behemoth's ability. So non-monsters get shielded by the Hive Mind for a 5-up invuln, and monster units get Hulking Behemoths. So again, this unit can never gain a Hive Fleet adaptation. So they also cannot gain the adaptations, but models in this unit have a 5+ invulnerable save. So it's this, so far, it's the same as shielded by the Hive Mind. You can't benefit from a Hive Fleet adaptation, and you do get a 5-up invuln. That's both the same things as the other one, but you get some extra stuff. Each time an attack is allocated to a model in this unit, subtract 1 from the damage characteristic of that attack. And we know from the likes of Death Guard and Deathwing Terminators and stuff like that, how big reducing damage by 1 can be, and how much more survivable it makes everything in your army when every monster gets this. And the final thing, models in this unit count as a number of models equal to their remaining wounds for the purpose of determining the control of objective markers. So if you thought, it's just one big monster, I'll put 5 models on that objective and now it's mine. Well, if that monster's got 9 wounds left, the monster actually counts as 9 wounds on that objective. 9 wounds! 9 models. That a monster with 9 wounds left will count as 9 models on the objective. And counting as something like 9 models, some of these monsters have like 15 wounds, 18 wounds. Can you imagine they count as like 18 models on an objective? That's a massive advantage. Having that, we've seen from, like the baby knights in Imperial Knight and Chaos Knight armies, the small ones, the War Dog class, like the smaller one, Armiger class knights, that's what they're called, the smaller ones. They've all gained the ability to be objective secured and also count as 5 models on objectives, and we're seeing a massive impact with that. Now imagine having monsters that count as 10, 12, 18 wounds on an objective, 18 models. I think that's going to be a huge advantage of this. And, let's not lie, you're gaining so much here. So, yeah, you can't take any Horde units or Swarm units in your army. But instead of that, every single monster in your army has gained a Demon save for free. They've all got a 5+ invulnerable save for free. You haven't had to pay any points for that or spend any command points. You're literally just foregoing the right to take any small Gribblies in your army, but your big ones are getting so much tougher. The 5-up invuln alone is probably worth not taking any, swarm or horde units. But the fact that they all subtract 1 from damage that's done to them as well, that's massive. Having a 5-up invulnerable on everyone and reducing damage by 1 means that basically all of your monsters are like a plague burst crawler. As tough as a plague burst crawler to take down, except some of them have like 20 wounds. That is amazing value. It's very good bang for your buck there, guys. So, yeah, I would have a serious look at this Crusher Stampede Tyranid players. It may be the way forward here. And the final benefit, Crusher Stampede Psychers from your army can generate their psychic powers from the Mass Convergence Discipline. It says can, so they don't have to. They can if they would like to. More than welcome to take their old powers if they want. So, let's move on to Warlord traits next. So the next things we're going to talk about, because what you gain access to some Warlord traits as well. So, you know, like we said, the restrictions, and I was like, you know, I'm going to tell you why the benefits outweigh the restrictions. I mean, we've already accepted that having a 5-up invuln on everything in your army, including non-monsters and monsters, but then having your monsters subtract 1 from all damage as well, that is more than worth not taking any swarm or horde units in your army. That's fine. But then on top of that, you're also gaining 3 extra Warlord traits to choose from, 3 extra psychic powers to choose from, and like 5 or 6 additional stratagems, which are all actually pretty damn good. So let's have a look at the Warlord traits first. So if a Crusher Stampede model is your Warlord, it can have one of the following Warlord traits instead of determining from another source. So it can, again, it doesn't have to, but it can, but it has to be your Warlord as well. The model has to be your Warlord for it to happen. So the first one, and in my opinion the best one, is Raging Influence. It's an aura. While a friendly Crusher Stampede monster unit is within 6 inches of this Warlord, each time a model in that unit makes a melee attack, an unmodified hit roll of a 6 scores 1 additional hit. So you get exploding 6s in combat. Every 6 will count as 2 hits instead of 1. Massive. And that's for all monsters within 6 inches of them. All Crusher Stampede monsters. Second one is called Savage Intimidation. While an enemy unit is within 3 inches of this Warlord, each time a model in the unit makes a melee attack, subtract 1 from that attack's hit roll. That's okay, but how often are, you know, monsters like your Warlord gonna get within 3 inches of enemy models without killing them? You know, like, you have to go within 3 inches of the enemy to -1 off the hit rolls. I don't think that's going to happen very often. And then also, each time a combat attrition test is taken for that unit, subtract 1 from the combat attrition test. That's not that big, man. Raging Influence is a lot better than that. And number 3 is Rampaging Beast. Once per turn, when this Warlord is selected to fight, it can use this Warlord trait. If it does so, until the end of the phase, add D3 to this Warlord's attacks characteristic. So, the first one gives exploding 6s. Every 6 counts as 2 hits for all monsters within 6 inches of the Warlord. And that one gives your Warlord D3 extra attacks. Now, the reason why I think Raging Influence is better than Rampaging Beast, let me just give you just a quick, you know, my thought on it. So you're adding D3 to your Warlord's attacks characteristic. That could very well be 1. You know, 2/3 of the time you use it, it's going to be, no, sorry, 1/3 of the time you use it, he's only going to get 1 extra attack. And then another third, he's going to get 2 extra attacks. So 1 or 2 extra attacks 2/3 of the time. Now, if you look at Raging Influence, it just says, while a friendly Crusher Stampede monster unit is within 6 of the Warlord. Now, if your Warlord is a monster, he is also a monster within 6 inches of himself. So every 6 he rolls to hit gives him an extra hit anyway. So, you know, if he's got 6 or 7 attacks, he should be getting 1, and in some cases, 2 extra hits, because he should be rolling 2 6s, 1 or 2 6s in combat. So he's basically getting the same amount of attacks that he would get anyway, or slightly like 1 attack less. Let's say he gets 1 attack less than he would get if he took the other Warlord trait, but in lieu of 1 attack, he's giving every single monster within 6 inches exploding 6s to hit. I definitely think Raging Influence is the best one. That's the one to come out of this with. I mean, you do have 3 there, and they are good, but number 1 is the best one. Right, then we're on to our stratagems. So stratagem number 1, Thunderous Impact. Here we go. And obviously you gain access to these guys if your army is a Crusher Stampede. Your whole army's got to be a Crusher Stampede anyway, if you want to have the rules. So, Thunderous Impact. This is a very good stratagem. 2 command points. Use a strat in your fight phase when a Crusher Stampede monster from your army finishes a pile-in move. You select an enemy monster or vehicle unit within engagement range of the model. Just one. And until the end of the phase, the model that uses the strat can only make attacks against the target that you've selected. But you add one to the hit roll, add one to the wound roll, and add one to the damage roll. That's insane. That's very good. For 2 command points. Most of your monsters hit on 3s, rerolling 1s. If they go into a monster or vehicle, for 2 CPs, they can hit on 2s, rerolling 1s. So they're basically going to hit with every single attack they've got. With the exploding 6s if they're within 6 inches of your Warlord, you know. And then you add one to the attack's wound roll. Now, most of your monsters are already going to be wounding other monster vehicles on 3s or 4s. So now they'll be wounding them on 2s or 3s if they were wounding them on 4s before. That's about wounding other vehicles on 2s is bonkers, man. So good. But then also you add one to the damage roll as well. Very, very big. That means, you know, when you go in with things like Dimachirons and they do D3 plus 3 damage, that's now D3 plus 4 damage. It's an average of 6 damage for every attack that goes through. That is very scary. Very scary. You also have Terrifying Charge. Use this strat at the start of the morale phase and select one enemy unit within engagement range of a Crusher Stampede monster from your army that made a charge this turn. And until the end of the turn, subtract 3 from the leadership characteristic of models in the enemy unit. Now, what's really good about this is you can use it in the morale phase. So you can wait till the morale phase to use this. And also, you're not subtracting D3 off their leadership, you're subtracting 3. So imagine if you run into something elite like a Custodes unit. So Custodes are currently leadership 8. So imagine if you charged into a Custodian Guard unit and you killed 3 of them. Say they're a 5-man unit, you killed 3 Custodes. Now their leadership is an 8, so that means they've lost 3. So on a 5 they're okay. If they roll a 6, 1 Custodian will run. Well, you can go, it's definitely worth 1 CP to make a 50-point model run away. So you can spend 1 CP in the morale phase after you know how much damage you've done, and you know he fails on a 6. Now you subtract 3 off their leadership. So now on a 3+, a Custodes gonna run from there, and then he's gonna take combat attrition on the other guy as well. So that's a very nice CP for for 1 command point, and it can be crucial in certain circumstances. Imagine as well, it could help you thin out hordes. So for example, you run into a unit of 20 racks going around right now, thick city. You go in there, you kill like 4 of them, and now they're leadership 4. From 8, they're basic leadership 4, so on a 5 or a 6, they can fail their morale. And you go, well, I'll spend 1 CP. Now you've got to roll a 1. If you don't roll a 1, you'll fail your morale, and then you've got to take combat attrition on the rest of the unit, and you'll lose another 2 or 3 for free. And that's how it's going to help you against hordes, man. Like, yeah, say it was a 20-man rack unit, and 4 had died, right? You killed 4, 16 left. Then you make them only pass morale on a 1. Most of the time, they should fail that. So another 1 runs. Now they're down to 15. Now they're all 15 dice. That's like 3 1s averagely. Another 3 run. So they're down to 12. And now you go, well, there you go. Like, I'm not a horde killer, this unit, but it's just knocked your unit of 20 racks from 20 models down to 12 models. I think that's very big, just having the ability to do that for 1 command point in the morale phase. It's huge. I think that's massive. So that's a great stratagem. The next one is Unbreakable Chitin. Also very good. I keep saying very good, but pretty much every rule this Crusher Stampede has got is very good. So it's 1 CP or 2 CP. Use the strat in any phase when a Crusher Stampede unit from your army is selected as a target of an attack. Just a Crusher Stampede unit. So this could be a non-monster unit if you want to. Because this strat isn't that good on monsters. It's pretty good, but they're tough anyway, so it's not that good on monsters. Unless you're getting shot by a lot of anti-tank weaponry. It's more for the smaller units in your army, like Hive Guard. If a Manticore that normally wounds Hive Guard on 2s shoots them, you can use this. Until the end of the phase, Each time an attack is made against the unit, an unmodified wound roll of a 1 to 3 for that attack fails, irrespective of any abilities that the weapon or the model making the attack may have. So it's transhuman, basically. So you can only be wounded on a 4+. If the unit you're using it on contains 5 or more models, or contains any models with a wounds characteristic of 10 or more, the strat costs 2 CP, otherwise it costs 1 CP. So like on a unit of 3 warriors, for example, holding an objective, that's 1 command point. Just 1 command point. But, you know, you can use it on Hive Guard for like 2 CP and just watch as your opponent, half the damage your opponent thinks they're going to do is just not there anymore. Or, you know, if you've got a toughness 6 monster getting shot by a load of toughness 7 and 8 weapons, you can make them wound on 4s for 2 CP. I think that's going to keep that monster alive for a lot longer, especially after they wound you with, you know, they can only wound you on a 4+. Then after they wound you, then you've got a 5+ invulnerable save. Then after you fell that, you reduce the damage by 1. I think you'll be alive for a shocking amount of time. That stratagem could make your opponent panic a little bit. The next one is Death Surge. And this one, I think you'll use most of the time because you're going to have a lot of monsters in your army. And you use this strat in the fight phase when a Crusher Stampede monster model, excluding a character model, from your army is destroyed. Do not remove the model from play. It can fight after the attacking model's unit has finished making attacks. So if somebody kills your monster in combat, you can fight in death, basically. When doing so, that Crusher Stampede model is considered to have its full wounds remaining for the purpose of determining what characteristic on its profile to use. And then after resolving the destroyed model's attacks, it is then removed. But imagine that, guys. Most things say you can make a shooting attack when you die, but use the bottom profile because that's the one you would have been on before you die. This says you go on your top profile. So you know what the crazy thing about this is? It's not like most of the other fighting deaths now, because a lot of the new fighting deaths is like pick a character. And that character can fight if it hasn't already fought. Pick a unit, that unit can fight on death if it hasn't already fought. This does not say that. So this could be used in your own fight phase. So you could charge, like if you had a monster that was half dead and you knew it was going to die in combat, you could charge into 2 targets, kill one of them with your attacks, get killed by the other one, and then fight in death and kill that one, acting on top profile as well. That's mental. So you could fight twice in your own turn if you get taken out. You could fight normally and then fight in death for 2 CP. I think that's that's going to cause a lot of pain for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people will get caught out by that. And, you know, combat armies, what can combat armies do? They have to charge you and try to kill you in combat. But if they charge you, you're gonna kill them in their own turn as they're killing you. That's a very hard obstacle for a lot of combat armies to overcome. Then we have a stratagem called Breaking Through. Use this stratagem in your charge phase when a Crusher Stampede monster model from your army finishes a charge move. Select an enemy model within engagement range of the monster and roll a number of d6 equal to the monster's remaining wounds. So if you charge in, say, with a Trigon that's got 10 wounds left, you charged an infantry unit. You pick one model in the infantry unit and you roll 10 dice because you have 10 wounds left. If the monster model's strength is higher than the enemy model's toughness, then for every 3+, the enemy unit takes a mortal wound. If your monster's strength is the same as the enemy model's toughness, then for every 4+, they take a mortal wound. And if your monster's strength is less than the enemy's toughness, then for every 5+, they take a mortal wound. And it's to a maximum of 6 mortal wounds. But that's very good. Imagine sending a monster into 2 infantry units. And then you look at one infantry unit, say Incubi. Just for argument's sake, you go into Incubi. You've got a Trigon with 10 wounds left. And you charge 2 units of 5 Incubi. You look at the 1 unit of 5 Incubi and you go, well, I'm going to roll 10 dice here because I've got 10 wounds left. And your toughness is lower than mine, so I'm rolling 3s. I should roll 6 or 7 3s. So you go, okay, 1 CP, I'll do this. And then for 1 CP, you should wipe out an entire Incubi squad of 5 man. And then you can make your attacks against the other one. So, again, for 1 CP, that's pretty incredible. And then you've got your 2 last stratagems, and these are warriors, for warriors specifically. So the first one is Rapid Adaptation, 1 CP. You've got to use it before the battle when mustering your army. So this is one of the ones that you have to write on your roster now. and you select a Crusher Stampede warrior unit from your army, and they get a weapon skill of a 2+ and a ballistic skill of 3+. Very good. You can only use the strat once, unless you're playing Strike Force, which most tournament games are, and then you can use the stratagem twice. So you can have 2 units of warriors with a weapon skill of 2+ and a ballistic skill of 3+. So not only can you make them very tanky with the stratagem we spoke about earlier with the kiting, the unbreakable kiting, but you can also make them very good at hitting, you know, like give them some good offense with rapid adaptation. And then also you've got enhanced brain functions. So use the stratagem in your shooting phase. Select one Crusher Stampede Tyranid Warriors unit from your army that's within engagement range of enemy models. Until the end of the phase, models in the unit can make range attacks using the Big Guns Never Tire rule as if they had the monster keyword. If the unit contains 5 or fewer models, the stratagem costs 1 CP, otherwise it costs 2 CP. Now imagine a unit of like 5 warriors with loads of Death Spitters or loads of Devourers, and then you can fire into combat for 1 command point. Nice. I mean, that's not super broken because none of the guns that they are able to fire into combat are that good, but they can still do damage. And for 1 command point, man, you know, it's bloody worth it. Bloody worth it. And the final thing we're going to talk about today, guys, the final benefit you get is the Mass Convergence Discipline. So there's 3 new powers which you can take with your Psychers. The first one being Synaptic Barrier. You can, it's got a value of 6. All 3 powers have a warp charge value of 6. I'll say that from the off. Now, Synaptic Barrier, if manifested, select a friendly Crusher Stampede model within 18 inches. So not a unit. So it's not going to work great on like Warriors and Hive Guard and stuff like that. But it'll work incredibly on your monsters. And until the start of your next Psychic phase, that model has a 4+ invulnerable save. Not just against range attacks, not just against melee attacks, against everything. A 4+ invulnerable save. Now imagine putting that on something like a Harridan. A 4+ invulnerable Harridan flying around. Then the second Psychic power is Aggressive Surge. And that also, warp charge value of 6. If manifested, select one friendly Crusher Stampede model, again within 18 inches of the Psyker. And until the start of your next Psychic phase, add D3 to the attacks characteristics of that model. Also, very good when we've just seen the amount of damage they can do with some of these stratagems and warlord traits. And then the final power, Infused Energies. Again, warp charge 6. And again, select one friendly Crusher Stampede. Oh, this time it's a unit, but not a Synapse unit, within 18 inches of the Psyker. And until the start of your next Psychic phase, each time a model in that unit makes a melee attack, you can re-roll the hit roll. 3 very powerful powers if you're a combat army. The first one, 4+ invulnerable for a model, makes you very, very survivable. Second one adds D3 to the attacks characteristics of a model. And the third one gives you full rerolls to hit in combat. The amount of damage that this army can put out while also gaining the survivability is phenomenal. Now, just before I leave you today, guys, I just want to give you one small example of what can happen. Now, imagine we have charged an Imperial Knight. Right. So what unit are we going to charge this Imperial Knight with? I have right here the stats for a Dimmachiron. So let's say our Dimmachiron has charged a knight. We'll go for a big knight. We'll go for a Knight Crusader, you know. Our Dimmachiron is 250 points. And a Knight Crusader is like 490. Basically 500 points. Double our points. Now we've charged this. We've charged this knight. Now for argument's sake, let's say we've cast the Aggressive Surge power. And we've cast Infused Energies power. So we've cast 2 powers on our monster, which, you know, that's you would do that. That's not costing you any command points or anything like that. So you would do that. And then also, let's say we've used 2 CP on Thunderous Impact, because that's what you would use if you charged a monster or a vehicle. Remember the one that we said, the stratagem that gives you +1 to the hit roll, +1 to the wound roll, and +1 to the damage roll? Very, very big. So we've spent 2 CPs and we've cast 2 powers on this guy. Now, a Dimmachiron has 6 attacks. 6 attacks. Now, an average on a D3, let's go for the middle. Let's say 2 attacks. So with our power, Aggressive Surge, we've given him 2 extra attacks. He's now got 8 attacks. And he is hitting on 3s. Weapon skill 3, but you can reroll hit rolls. If it's a Dimmikiron, he rerolls hit rolls anyway. You don't even need to do Infused Energies power. But let's say we have. So if you do it with a Dimmikiron, all you need to have cast is Aggressive Surge, 1 Psychic Power, and 1 Stratagem. And this is what he's going to do. So he's got 8 attacks now, hitting on 3s with rerolls. It should be 7 or 8 hits you've got there. Let's say 7. Let's give the knight the benefit of the doubt. So we've got 7 hits. Oh no! Scratch that, guys. The stratagem we've just talked about using is giving us +1 to hit. So we're hitting on 2s, rolling 1s. So with 8 attacks, you should get 8 hits. Fingers crossed. If you don't get 8 hits, something's gone wrong. So you should get 8 hits, basically, hitting on 2s, rolling 1s. Then you are strength 7 and your strength +1. So your strength 8. So you're the same toughness as the knight. So you're wounding it on 4s. But that stratagem has given us +1 to wound as well. Man, I just can't stress enough how good it is to get +1 to hit, wound, and damage. So we got 8 hits on it. Now we're wounding it on 3s because we're strength 8 with +1 to wound. So we're wounding it on 3s. And with 8 attacks, wounding it on 3s, you should get 5. 5 or 6. Let's say 5. So you got 5 wounds on it. Now you got 5 wounds on it and they're -3 AP. And a knight has a 6 up save against that. So let's say he passes 1. You know, it's very iffy on 5 or 6. You know, you should get 1. So let's say he's got 1. So 4 attacks have gone through. 4 of our mighty attacks have gone straight through this knight. And we are D3 +3 damage. But we add 1 to our attack's damage roll. So we are D3 +4. Because obviously it's a roll. We're rolling the D3. We add 1 to it. So it's D3 +4 damage. Now 4 have gone through. So that's 4d3 +16 damage. Now the average on 4d3 is 8. So 8 and 16 is 24. And that is just about a knight dead. And that is like giving the knight the benefit. You know, we've said we should get 5 or 6 wounds. So let's err on the caution and say we only got 5. The knight should pass one save out of that. So let's say he does, you know. So we've given the knight the benefit of the doubt at every stage. And we, to the wound, have killed a knight. Now, I mean, the great thing about it is you might go, okay, you know, it's a knight. It's an Imperial Knight dead. That's not that big, you know. There's quite a few units in the game that can just one-shot a knight. I would agree with you. Yes, there are. But there aren't very many that are half the points of the knight that can kill the knight in one shot. Not very many at all. So, man, I think just having this Crusher Stampede now, the rules for this have just made monsters go from like all the way down here with the average nib list here. Like this is where Gaunt's, Gene Stealer's, Hive Guard, that kind of list is there. You had your monsters all the way down here. Maybe like 1 or 2 in your list, in this list were good. And now they've just gone all the way up here, man. I think the Crusher Stampede, I think it's convinced me. I think the Crusher Stampede is probably the competitive way forward. So there you have it, guys. We've talked about all of the benefits that you get from it, the tiny downside drawback that you get from it, and we've talked about all the rules in there and how you should be using them and why they are so good. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button, notifications bell in the corner over there so you know each time we release one of these videos. And if you would like to support the channel, or you would like more exclusive content, or if you would like amazing discounts on our web store, and I keep saying or, but it's and. If you would like all of these, then head over to glasshammergaming.co.uk and join the elite. Right, guys, I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I will be back with more next Tuesday, either a roster review or a rules review. And until then, stay happy and keep crushing people with Nidzilla.